Hey everybody. So yesterday afternoon, the Boston Bruins absolutely demolished the Carolina Hurricanes to take a 2-0 series lead in the Eastern Conference Final. And that game really was a beatdown from start to finish for the Bruins. It was probably one of, if not the best game that the Bruins have played all season. And just from start to finish, they were dominant. And after that game, I've seen a lot of people commenting and heard a lot of people saying that this series is over. That Boston's just going to roll through Carolina, and that Boston's going to the Stanley Cup. I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit on saying that this series is over, because I, for one, do not believe that this series is over just yet. And as the old saying goes, a team is never in trouble in a playoff series until they lose on home ice. And the Carolina Hurricanes have not yet lost on home ice in this series. In fact, the Carolina Hurricanes have not yet lost on home ice in these entire playoffs. So I do think it's a little premature to be calling this series over right now. Yes, Boston took care of business in games 1 and 2. Boston looks like the better team right now. Boston is the better team right now. Carolina is not getting the same level of play that they did in the last round against the Islanders. Their goaltending hasn't been very good. But they haven't lost at home yet. This series is still only 2-0. Last time I checked, it takes 4 wins to win a playoff series. Boston only has 2. And Carolina was down 2-0 in the first round against Washington and came back by winning both games at home, tying the series up 2-2, and then ending up winning in Game 7. So Carolina is not out of this series yet. Yes, things look good for Boston right now, but if Carolina comes out and wins Games 3 and 4 on home ice, all of a sudden, we're back to 0. We're starting from scratch all over again. We have a tie series, and then it becomes a best of 3. So for Carolina here, you've just got to focus on one game at a time. You have to take this one game at a time. But think, if they win Game 3, all right, now it's 2-1. It's only a 1-game deficit. It's not that big of a deal. Then they win Game 2. Or Game 4, and you're tied right back up at 2. And you have a 2-2 series. This series is not over yet. Now, for Boston, if they go into Carolina, and they don't need to take both, they don't need to sweep the Hurricanes, but if they take one of these games in Carolina and get that third win, then I think the series is probably over. But we're not there yet, because Carolina has not lost at home, and they have been incredibly resilient in these playoffs. This Hurricanes team is not a team that is just going to give up and go away. This is not a team that's going to roll over and say, all right, we lost, we're done. This is a team that is going to fight tooth and nail till the bitter end, until the clock says 0-0-0 in the third period, and they lost for the 4th time this series. I don't see them really giving up before then. That's not the way this team has played all season long, and it's certainly not how that team has played in the playoffs. They could have easily, if they were a team that was going to give up, they could have easily given up in that Washington series. Whether it was after the first 2 games or whether it was after Washington won Game 5, they could have easily given up in that Washington series, said they're the better team, they're the defending champs, they win. That Carolina team did not give up, and I don't expect them to give up now. So while it's not a great situation for them, Boston cannot take their foot off the gas. Boston needs to try to go into Carolina and play the exact same way that they've played the first 2 games of this series, which is high energy, physical, fast hockey, and good defense, and getting scoring throughout the lineup. That's how Boston is going to continue to win in this series. For Carolina, they just need to focus on one game at a time. Win the next game. Then you make it 2-1. Win the game after that. Then you make it 2-2, and we're starting all over again with an even series. So I just think it's important to realize that even though Boston looks very good right now, and they do, and Carolina has not played very well so far in this series, this series is not over just yet. The playoffs are too unpredictable and too much can happen to be calling a series over after 2 games. It's not the way it works most of the time. Now, can Boston sweep Carolina? Absolutely. With the way that they're playing right now, absolutely they could sweep Carolina. Could Carolina come back and win this series in 6 or 7? Absolutely. Especially given the playoffs that they've had to this point. Absolutely. So I just think that all the people in the comment sections online and saying that this series is done and that it's all over, and I think it's a little premature. Because we've seen stranger things happen. We've seen stranger things happen in these playoffs. So I think it's a little early to be counting out the Carolina Hurricanes. But obviously, Game 3 is a must-win for Carolina. As much of a must-win as you can get without it being mathematically a must-win, which it is not. But if Carolina goes down 3-0 to Boston, I think that's pretty much it on this series. That would be a sweep or a 5-game series win for the Bruins, I would think. But if Carolina wins Game 3, they are right back into this. So it's not over yet. And, Boston needs to make sure that they don't get ahead of themselves. I don't think that's going to be a problem, given the leadership group in that locker room with Bergeron and Chara, Marchand. Stanley Cup champion players who have won the Cup before. David Krejci, they know what it takes to win. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But Boston cannot get too ahead of themselves. Carolina needs to take things 1 game at a time. And this series is not over just yet. The Hurricanes, if they continue their home ice dominance, do have a chance to still pull off a Stanley Cup run here. But they need to win these next 2 games at home. If they lose either of these next 2 games at home, then I will be okay with people saying that the series is over, because at that point I think it will be. So, with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.